So my name is Jin Sato. I am a professor at the Institute for Advanced Studies on Asia at the University of Tokyo. I have been working as a visiting fellow here at JICA Research Institute since July this year. I have been mainly working on politics of natural resources, but with regard to JICA-RI, I have been working on two projects. The first is on studying the emerging donors. Particularly, I'm looking into how recipient countries transform themselves into donors by looking into the bureaucratic changes that are happening inside the government. The second project is about ODA history, and I am particularly responsible for writing a history about international perception of Japanese aid by focusing on the Western perception as well as the recipient perception by digging into old newspaper archives, interviewing counterparts, doing archival work, so on and so forth. So those are the things that I'm currently doing. So that's exactly what I want to find out in my research on ODA history. But from my experience as a chief investigator for ODA evaluations for the past 5 years, I visited roughly about 7 countries doing evaluations, doing sort of a third-party evaluation of Japanese ODA. I think in general, Japanese ODA is perceived as a good practice. Particularly, the recipient countries appreciate the commitment and the level of expertise of the frontline experts that JICA sent. On the other hand, perhaps due to the rise of Chinese aid, there's been a lot of some complaints about the slow speed of Japanese aid implementation, or and related to that, there's a lot of bureaucratic procedures that are attached to project implementation. So I think because of the rise of emerging donors, the distinctiveness, the strength, as well as the weakness of Japanese foreign aid has been sort of revealed, and I think it's a good learning opportunity for a future of Japanese aid because that would highlight where to improve. So I think that question, it seems to me that there's an assumption that Japanese aid has received unfair evaluation in the past. I think that's fair to some extent, but I think the problem is on the Japan side as well, I think, because I think the Japanese government has not invested so much on public relations, that is, disseminating information about the strategy, the vision, and the procedures for implementation especially to the Western donors. I'm sure there are a lot of individual efforts by the local JICA office directors at the personal level, but at the more higher governmental level, I don't think there has been a sort of a consistent effort to sort of promote or to let other people know the distinctiveness of Japanese ODA. And also the other the issue related to the weakness of Japanese aid is the short rotation of the personnel. I think JICA personnel, they tend to rotate in 2 or 3 years, which would limit their opportunity to learn a local language and also to develop personal connection with the local people. I think many of the Western donors have 5 to 6 years rotation period. So I think that's one issue that Japanese ODA should think about. The other is what I mentioned already, the public relations. I think there needs to be a lot of improvement. And then finally, which gets back to my first response to the first question, is the speed of implementation. How can we speed up the process of implementation? And that has to do a lot to do with handing over the power to decide to the local offices instead of deciding everything in Tokyo.